All right, welcome back. My name's Brad Ashley.
I'm Scott Campbell. And Brad, in the last video, I was complaining about, many of my projects, the LiDAR and the imagery do not align. And you said that Engine can actually help me out. How explain this to me? Because what I see in front of me right now is what I often see with some of my projects.
Yeah, we've seen this a number of times with clients over the years where we have, they have data that isn't well aligned. It could be that the image itself isn't, just doesn't look correct, or it could be a case like this where the image and the point cloud don't align well. Because there's kind of two different scenarios, we've built two different tools. So under tools in SOLV Engine, you can see that we have a data aligner basic and a data aligner advanced. And I'm going to start with the data aligner basic. So this is a pop-up that comes up and tells you how to use this tool, a little bit of information about it. So down here in the bottom, it tells you that you can adjust the roll, pitch, and yaw. You can do that in the negative or the positive, just using your keypad numbers. So if I start clicking here, you're going to
I see it moving. Yeah.
Images are moving. And so I'm kind of trying to get it to align as closely as possible. Now, because I've worked with this data set before, I don't know that I'm going to be able to get it exactly correct, but I can get it pretty close.
Okay.
Or much closer than it was.
So that's it now. Once you do this, the whole file is done?
No, this is an individual photo correction. So you can see here in the pop-up that I've got my camera location and what the adjustment is on this individual photo. You can also see that it's been modified, but it hasn't yet been saved. So once it's been saved down here in the adjustments, this will turn to a green save as opposed to a modified. And I just have to go through individual photo after individual photo and do these corrections.
So that's great. I mean, that certainly goes to one of my questions about how do I get my images to line up with my LiDAR. But it seems like it's a lot of work that I have to go through each camera location. Is there a faster or better way to do this?
Yeah, this calibration is really for those one-off instances. And so if you're just doing this on one or two photos in a collection, it would work just fine. But what I think you're talking about is more of a systematic error that's across the entire collection. And so if I hit these reset values down here at the bottom, you'll see that it went back to the original state. I no longer have any edits made on this adjustment. And I can actually close this and we'll go into that advanced tool. So I'll open up the data aligner advanced tool. This is an optional function within SOLV Engine. It's an additional cost. And so if you're looking at our price sheet, you'll see that there. In the data aligner, again, a pop-up comes up. And in this one, it tells you a little bit about how it works. Before I get into the working of it, though, I want to show you what the end results are so that we understand kind of why it's important that we do what we're doing here in the aligner. So under the tool, under the project title, we'll open that up. Remember earlier in one of our last videos, we talked about this camera correction file. You can actually upload a previous file, and I'll go back here, go into my results. And once I update this project, you're going to see instantly that this has come quite a ways from where it was before.
And this is now throughout the whole file. So if we change camera locations, it's still.
That's right. So if I click down here, you can see that I'm still aligned.
Yep.
The alignment's still really good. So it's for the entire project.
Pretty cool. So that's a magic file. How do we go about creating that? Because I'm assuming you have to create one.
Yeah, so I'll go back, I'll unload this file, remove the file, update the project. Again, you're instantly going to see that it goes back to that problematic data that we had to begin with. And we'll start using this advanced tool. So once we open this up, it instantly tells us some information about how we use this tool. You have to select 5 corresponding points in both the imagery as well as the point cloud data. So it's points in both that you can see that look that are correspond and that are easy to pick out. So we'll find a few places in the data collection where we think that might be the case. Corners of buildings, corners of signs, specific types of data that you might be able to find locations of. If we look here, we can see that there's a road sign or a sign here for this business. There's some pretty good corners to that. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to actually change my view to be based on intensity and grayscale. I'm going to change the size of the points to be a little smaller so that I can actually pinpoint a point. You want to use points that are kind of in eye range. If you're thinking of driving a car, you want things that are sort of at eye level. You don't want to pick points that are at the very top or the very bottom of the image. And that's because with 360 imagery or panoramic imagery, there's often stitching issues at those points. And so you don't want to use the stitching issues as part of your correction.
So at this point, anybody watching along, of course, has access to the data. This is workshop data that we've provided to anybody who might be watching this video. So it might be useful for anybody watching the video just to load up the data and follow along as Brad does this. And another thought, Brad, as you go in to pick out these points, you said picking out something that's easy to grab. I'm guessing that things like the power line, because we saw on the power line there was a wide gap, that's not a good candidate. Something like the corner of that sign might be a good candidate.
That's right, yeah. And that's a great point, Scott. This data is available and you should have it as part of the handout, and you can access that and use the same things. So the way that this works, we find the image control and the corresponding point control. So I'll pick a point in the imagery. Again, I'm looking at this max sign here. You can sort of tell where the corners are. So maybe I'll pick this far corner. It'll turn purple. I'll pick a corresponding point in the point cloud, and it's yellow. So image controls are purple, point controls are yellow, and that's 1 point. If I'm not happy with the point that I've picked, I can always re-hit the button and change that position. So I can, again, pick a different point for that same point until I'm happy with the actual location I picked. So this is the first one. Another important thing to note is that you don't want to pick all of the points in this one image capture. You want to have points throughout your entire project. So let's go look at a different location, maybe something at the other end of the project, where we can still see some good corners of buildings or something, but they're not at the same location in the project.
So just to clarify that, Brad, and maybe to emphasize that point, it's not just pick a different view or a different point, but it's like change camera locations.
That's
Pick
right.
different, so, rule of thumb, maybe no more than one point per camera location so that you spread it out. Of course, it depends on how big your project is too, but yeah.
That's right. So I'm going to pick another point here. I'll use the top of this building. It's a pretty defined point. And again, there's a pretty good point in the point cloud that corresponds. I can turn the other direction. I know there's another house over here that's got some decent corners on it. You really want to get in tune with the project data that you've got and try and pick the appropriate points that are working for you. So again,
so another camera location, and you're looking for another set of points.
But you want to ensure that there's nothing in front of or behind of the point that you're picking. In the case of where I just was, you could see that there was a tree in front of it, and that's really difficult to look at. In this case, the grayscale is really tough because the imagery is so dark. So again, you can go and change the intensity value to make it a little clearer. So here I'm going to pick the top of this house.
And again, the points that you're picking, they're not too high in the scene. They're not too low in the scene. You're sort of in the middle, so you're not getting that distortion from wide angle lenses.
That's right. One of the other things that are normally pretty good to select are things like stop signs, road signs that have some decent corners to them. So in this case, we've got this median sign, and you can also see in the point cloud that it's very defined because of the intensity. So it's one of those white objects that's coming back. So again, we'll pick a point here on this corner. And the corresponding point in the point cloud. maybe we'll do something from the other side here.
Okay, so we're changing camera locations again. It's worthwhile repeating that, you know, spread them out through camera locations, and you're doing the same sort of thing, but just with a different sign in a
That's
different
right.
camera location.
So another option you can do here is you can always go into 3D mode if you want to make sure that you actually got a point on that sign itself and not something behind it. You can go into that 3D mode, sort of look at it from different angles. These are just the points on the point cloud, of course, because the image is now turned on.
That's probably not a bad thing to do, especially in the early days as you're getting used to the tool and picking these points. You do want to make sure your LiDAR point is the one that's correct, that matches, correlates over to the one that's in the image.
So now that I've got all 5 points that I've selected, you can add additional points. If you've got a large data set, a large collection, I would suggest adding additional points. But at the 5 connection or 5 corresponding point location, you can now run the alignment correction, and it'll tell you if the error is you know what it looks like. So I'm just going to hit the run alignment correction, and right away it'll come up with an error, and this is the error of angle. So this isn't a distance or a measurement of difference. This is an angular error between the image control and the point control points. And you can see right away that these numbers are pretty small. You know, we're in the fractions of points.
And they're green, which is an indication that the program at least thinks it's a pretty good connection.
That's right. If any of them were marginal points, they would be yellow. And if any of them were really bad, they would be red. And as you can see here, you can actually delete that point. And again, you would just add a new entry.
Well, let's do that, Brad. Let's just delete that last point because it's still there in our screen. And let's just go in and let's say we kind of goofed, and let's just see what that would look like if we goofed in the setting up of making that measurement.
So you can see that I deleted
back
that
down
point.
to 4. Yeah,
it's now not there. I'm down to 4, which means that my my alignment run is no longer available to me, and so I now need to add a new entry. So I've done that. I can now again find that spot in the image.
and let's just say, just from our argument's sake, let's just say you've picked that spot on the median sign, but let's say you picked the stop sign by mistake for your last point.
Yeah, sure. So if I pick something like that, again, I've got my 4 or my 5 points, so I can now run my alignment. And as you can see now, I've got a bunch of errors. And you might wonder, why are the ones that used to be good now bad? It's because it's an angular error that's going to have to change to make the entire view work. Again, this is the entire project, not just an individual photo. So each of these changes because of that one bad measurement.
Okay, well, that's really useful to use. So, and as we can see here, like you say, if it's red, you got to go back and you got to start taking a look at what you've done and how you've lined them up, and maybe use that 3D mode to make sure you've got the right LiDAR point picked. Yeah.
So I'll go back and I can just add that point back. Run my realignment. We're back again, all below 1. And now what I can do is apply that alignment correction. So I'll hit the run alignment correction. Instantly, you see that the images have aligned much better. I can start to look from a different direction. You know, there's still some difference between them. And really that comes down to how much do you want to add. In this case, I would likely go back, add a few more points, and make the data a little tighter. But it all comes down to how much do you want to play with the data.
Right. Okay, so now we've done that. We've got it all aligned. This is where we now create that magic file that we showed at the beginning.
So actually, once we ran that alignment, the 4x4 file, which is what we uploaded, automatically was created in the folder. So if we go,
okay, so we don't have to export it; it's just right there.
That's right. So if I go and I look in my data, and I go data viewer in the images, I now have a new 4x4 matrix file right there. And that's the one that I would have uploaded previous. So it automatically saves. One thing you'll want to do after you've done this, running this correction, is you'll want to export out a new CSV file. So here in the manage, we've got uncorrected images. We'll want to export that corrected CSV, save it as part of our results. We'll call this corrected image. And save that file. And now, when we send out this data to somebody else, we want to ensure that we use that corrected file and not the uncorrected file.
So in order to even maybe get it more closely aligned, in order for me to share with my clients, I probably would go through, spend more time picking my points, and probably pick 10 points or more, depending on the level of accuracy that I needed.
That's right.
Okay, well, that brings me to my next question, which is how do I now go about sharing this with my clients?
Yeah, so that'll be in our next video, Scott, and it'll be our final video. We'll go through sharing these files with end users.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Brad. We'll see you in the next video.